I don't think of my studio as a solitary experience because my art is driven a lot more by technology than traditional art. I work a lot with other people. I collaborate with people who know more about circuitry or coding. And so, in terms of the isolation, that lack of conversation was really apparent to me. Conversations pieces developed off of some work that was shown at a solo show that happened right before COVID, as well as up at spring break in New York. It was, about light and light reflecting off a surface that basically acted like a rear projection screen. They were compelling, but they also felt kind of distant to me because there was no obvious handwork in them. I think that over the course of this lockdown, I really missed feeling like there was some presence of me. And maybe that has to do with the fact that I kind of lost the presence of everybody during this. The Conversations series was really about, getting back to leaving some sort of mark on the work. I took lots of different layers of acrylics and wrote in this calligraphic script. Yes, I am obsessed with lighting, and everything that I have done in a really long time has had light involved in it. But realistically, it's just another medium. I love the dialogue between light and other materials, but I really like feeling like I've got my hand involved in it. Because my training was as a painter, not as a lighting person. And so to pick up a paintbrush and just, make marks was really kind of healing for me. They really became sort of a metaphor for me for what was going on without it being so literal, because I don't do literal work. I don't do political work. I don't want to bring that to the table in a way that it's really harsh. With all of the noise around COVID and racial injustice and political situation with the election, it was a lot of different views with very little of anybody listening to each other. Artists, we kind of want to make work that, says something about the time that we're going through. And so it's not so important that someone would know that backstory, but it was important to me to have that backstory. And the reason I call them conversations is because they feel like they're all individual voices. And as they're being layered, sometimes they played nice together. There was some sort of harmony to it. And sometimes it was just a big argument. But also when you add the light to it, it could light up certain quote unquote voices louder than others. At one point, I picked up some epoxy and started writing with the epoxy, and the light hit it. And the light magnified, and it opened up the possibility of, well, what if the light isn't inside the piece? What if the light is outside of the piece? They were the first pieces in quite a while that I've done that don't have any color, right? It's just black and white or little mutations. They also relied on something external to them for them to fully work. It's not self-contained. The quiet disagreements needs more of a community, right? It needs something outside, which would have been, a spotlight of some sort. And the little ones seemed quieter to me. It's like there's always these undercurrents. And with these, it's almost like they're those subtle little microaggressions, right? So you've got these little layers of script. And then you've got this magnification or these shadows that they create that are much bigger than the little layers of script. These little pieces kind of allowed me to use them to think about bigger issues, to think about things that were going on in the world and how, we don't exist alone, and that it really takes a lot of us to make anything happen. And so the quiet disagreements was really about, paying attention to the underlying tension that everybody's carrying. If we really listen, it's that amplification of what these words are leaving behind. The isolation part of COVID, where everything that had been lined up coming to a screaming halt, was disconcerting. But I have to say that having everything else stop was really good for me. it allowed me to just get in the studio and just experiment. I usually work because I have shows lined up. So there's always some sort of commitment that has been made and I have to produce for that. What happened with COVID when everything shut down was that it just really allowed for me to just try some new things. And it literally felt like I had just come home again.